Pranayama is that bridge between the physical body and the emotional body. Some of the psychotherapeutic benefits of it are that when you are feeling big heightened emotions, that emotion brain is really loud. When we're doing something like a humming breath, that sends a message to the brain that you can calm down. And so we can't say like, okay, feel happy now or stop feeling sad. But this is something that really can be like a bridge to get you from maybe you're like a 10 out of 10 and then coming down to maybe a 6 out of 10. So it really bridges the physical body and the emotional body, which is why I really love to use this in my work.
What's your name, Kristen?
Yep.
How often do you have to spell your name?
Oh, all the time, even just yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's Ian, but there's a lot of INs or
Right.
CH. Yes. And in school, I was friends with Kirsten, so that was confusing for people.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you?
I'm Sarah. All right. So I'm Sarah Westbrook, and this is my good friend and colleague, Kristen Simons. Hi, Kristen.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here.
Me too.
Kristen Simons is a licensed therapist, a certified perinatal mental health specialist, a yoga teacher, and a mom of 2, and a plant fan.
Mm-hmm.
You said plant lady earlier.
Yeah.
It sounds sort of like older woman thing, doesn't
Like
it?
a cat lady.
Like a cat lady.
I am a cat lady too.
A cat lady and a plant lady. It's so nice that we can have these multiple identities.
I know. We have to.
Yes. Yes, we do.
Yeah. We're not just yoga teachers.
Right. There's something besides yoga. Which brings us to today's topic, which is Bhramari Pranayama, our first pranayama episode. And what a great one. One of my favorite ones to start with. And such a great tool for helping people regulate their nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Bhramari is the B sound, the buzzing, the humming kind of pranayama. We'll get all into that. And pranayama is an ancient system, thousands of years old, older than asana even, of breath control. So prana is that life force. It's your breath, but beyond that is actually the life force itself. And yama is a restraint or a control. Mm-hmm. Kind of an interesting way to think about that. But how do we shift out of unconscious breathing to a more conscious breath pattern? And why would the yogis do that? Mm-hmm. And what's the effect that it has? And their masterful way of using observation over time in a pre-scientific way, able to figure out this has a positive effect on how we feel. Mm-hmm. It's such a powerful pranayama for that.
You know, something I also learned was that other people translate it to pran ayama. So energy, pran, ayama, non-constricting or expanding. Mm-hmm. So I have been thinking about Bhramari in terms of there could be that constriction, but you could also use it as an expanding, whether that's energetically or physically with the breath.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just kind of interesting to think about the different ways to translate it.
And this is what's so cool about yoga is it's been around for so many thousands of years, and it's had influences from all across Asia, where can even the definition of yoga itself could mean one thing and its opposite. Oh, it's the union of this. Oh, no, it's the dualism. Exactly. It's not the union of opposites. It's about opposites. And so this is where it's really interesting to then be open-minded to the different ways that these things are defined. And then how does that change your thinking about it? Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love that. Do you want to take us through some of the nervous system benefits?
Sure. Yeah. So Bhramari is bee breath or humming breath. And one of the biggest benefits is that it activates the parasympathetic part of the autonomic nervous system, which is our rest and digest or the calming nervous system. It improves vagal tone, which is a part of that parasympathetic system. So some benefits are improving in anxiety, depression, stress. Co-regulation is something that I talk about a lot. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're with a child or another person that's feeling overwhelmed or heightened in some way, humming together, or even your own vibrational tones can help another person who's with you.
Awesome. Right. And so those are words that we're hearing a lot about in the last several years. And we can get into more detail about what some of those terms mean. And so the why of it is, I think, gets to what Kristen was saying. Like, why? Who cares? Why are we doing this? Why would this pranayama be relevant to me? Well, because we want to feel better. I think one of the most important things that I would like students and clients to realize is that relaxation is a skill. Feeling better is a skill that you can spend time working on. It's not something, well, I was born that way and that person was just born that way and they're lucky. They're just more happy-go-lucky than I am. They just have a different personality. I am who I am. No, you can learn these skills. And breathing and breath control is a huge part of learning how to feel better.
Yeah. And pranayama, or breathing, is that bridge between the physical body and the emotional body. And so, we can talk about this more, but some of the psychotherapeutic benefits of it are that when you are feeling, big heightened emotions, that emotion brain is really loud. When we're doing something like a humming breath or slowing or constricting the breath, then that sends a message to the brain that you can calm down. And so naturally, we don't really have a direct impact on feelings. We can't say like, okay, feel happy now or stop feeling sad. But by doing like a more physical or energetic practice, I know, don't we wish that could happen? I wish. But this is something that really can be like a bridge to get you from maybe you're like a 10 out of 10 and then coming down to maybe a 6 out of 10 or something like that. So it really kind of bridges the physical body and the emotional body, which is why I really love to use this in my work.
Did they talk about the breath in psychotherapies? No. Okay, so interesting.
Maybe they do now, but when I was in school, somatic work was really not taught much. We talk about a biopsychosocial spiritual lens. So the body came into play in terms of like, this is what somebody might be feeling in their body if they're having emotions.
Got it.
If they're depressed, then they're probably sleeping more or loss of appetite, like kind of typical like symptomology.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But addressing the body sensations or the body symptoms wasn't necessarily a focus. It was more about addressing the mood. I think psychotherapy is moving in a different direction now. There is a lot more somatic work happening, but I think in generations past and when I was learning, a lot of it was more like head up, top down is what we would call it, of like, let's get out of our unhelpful thinking with more thinking.
Right. And it's interesting because there's a huge tradition in yoga of distancing itself from the body. So a lot of probably the majority of the yoga tradition is the body is problematic, the senses are problematic, even the mudra that's used in this is to diminish, to close the gate of the senses, to plug the ears, and reduce that input from around there and instead transcend, right? The ultimate goal was a transcendence of the body. And that was the liberation, the moksha that people were looking for.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I think when I think about yoga, it's more about getting into the body. But you're right. Traditionally, it's about transcending the physical body.
Right. And I think the tantric traditions came in and said, wait, the body's not the problem. The body's the vehicle. So there's so many differing yoga traditions, and in most yoga teacher trainings, you're reading Patanjali, he's the ascetic tradition, which is like transcend the body's a problem. Oh, but then we're going to do all this asana. But don't worry about how you do it, just flow. You're good.
Right.
I think part of what we're doing with this podcast is trying to make sense of like what tradition you're swimming in and start to make some more conscious choices about messages you're hearing. Okay. So I'm curious, can you define what psychotherapy is?
Essentially, psychotherapy is doing one-on-one individual work or group psychotherapy where we are working through thoughts, feelings, physical sensations in the context of family of origin, trauma, certainly what's happening in the body, and then using different psychotherapeutic modalities to help reduce those symptoms and reach some sort of treatment goal is the hope. I think that my understanding of the psychotherapy that I do, the work that I do, has changed over time, as has my way of teaching yoga. Right after grad school, I, as most people are, was following more of like the strict textbook, cognitive behavioral therapy, more of a rigid kind of approach. And over the years, I've kind of collected all these different ideas and ways of helping people, and have really figured out that my definition of psychotherapy is the relationship between the client and the therapist, and that ability for them to be vulnerable and authentic in the space and then reveal what's going on for them so that we can then help them move forward.
It's so interesting that it's about the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for the teachers out there, I think that you have sensed this, know this, understand this about your own teaching practice or how you work with people. It is that relationship that really creates the connection.
Mm.
And your knowledge is so important, right? You couldn't have that relationship or be, authentic or professional within that without your knowledge, but it is the relationship that we're cultivating. And we'll kind of circle back around to some of these things, but I am curious about having people hum.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that would take like, what am I doing? I didn't expect that you would ask me to hum and that you would then tell me that this is going to make me feel better. It sounds like a little bit of a hard sell.
It can be for some people. I think that when people come to see me, they kind of know the type of work that I do based on my website and marketing. But it did take me a while to feel confident enough to bring that into the therapy space because of my schooling and my own perception of what quote unquote psychotherapy looks like. But then I'm like, if it's helpful and this is the way that I've seen in yoga people feel better, so why not try it out? And so I kind of have to discern like what clients I can introduce it to.
Sure.
And how and when, which is all part of that relationship of like, when is it appropriate? What type of rapport do we have? But yeah, some people, I sometimes will bring humor into it too, of like, we're going to just like try an experiment and see what happens. If you hate it, we'll stop. But like, let's just try it out and see.
Right. And that's kind of a lot of yoga anyway. Okay, I'm going to do this pose. I think I hate it. No, I love it. A year later, I hate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The first time I ever learned about pranayama, I took a breath class. I don't even know what motivated at the Discovery Center in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
That was like, I don't think it exists anymore, does it?
I've heard of it recently, but maybe it's something
Maybe
different.
It does.
Yeah.
So it's like this place where you can, like, adults can take like fun classes, and there's like salsa dancing and like pottery, and like there was a class about the breath. And so we went and, one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, breathe. And the instructor looked at me and he's like, you got it all backwards. And I was reverse breathing, and I'd probably been reverse breathing my entire life. I was in my early 20s when I took this class. All of us were all experiencing anxiety, which is normal. But when it gets out of control, one of the ways that we can notice that we're in not a great state is we're holding the breath.
Mm-hmm.
Any other things people might notice about their breathing if they're in a not great state of mind?
Yeah. So similarly to holding the breath, a lot of times people will have upper back, neck, shoulder tension. And that can be indicative of shallow breathing or holding the breathing and then using those muscles to do the motion. So the chest breathing, or just breathing kind of like into your collarbones is something that I notice a lot with people. Headaches are often a common symptom because they're not getting those full inhales and exhales. But I would say that a lot of times people don't actually know. It's like what you were talking about. You didn't know. You were probably doing that your whole life. Yeah.
No. Asked me to breathe. I'm breathing correctly. What do you mean? No. No, I think I had a suspicion that improving breathing would help. I was training and working with horses at the time and try to get people to relax on the horse and feel more comfortable. And so I was like, well, I'll take this breath class and I'll learn how to help my students. Oops, how to help me too.
That's how it works.
That's how it goes. Gabriel Halpern, he's come up a lot in these past episodes. We mentioned him just by his first name, Gabriel, and he's a longtime Chicago area teacher, and he's known for his pithy quotes often. One of them was, there's a lot of me search in research. Trying to understand what's going on. What's happening to me?
I like
I'm
that.
going to research that.
Yeah.
Which is why you're listening to this episode, right? We're trying to understand ourselves better and make some different choices. And I love that about the breath, that it's this voluntary thing that can affect quote unquote involuntary processes, right? So heart rate variability, respiratory sinus arrhythmia, like all these different factors. Like this is the autonomic nervous system. You have no control over it. It's in this part of the brain that you can't access. Well, the yogis have been doing it for centuries. And the breath, it's involuntary. I breathe most of the time and I don't think about it at all. And it's voluntary. It's so cool. And I think that's because so that we can choose to speak, so that we can communicate, right? That there's lots of different reasons why breathing had to become voluntary also. And then it's kind of given us this avenue in to changing. So if we breathe rapidly, shallowly, in a reverse way where it's mostly chest and the diaphragm is actually stuck and not moving, that's when we're signaling to our system that we should be in a fight or flight or freeze kind of a state of being.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah. And sometimes we need that, right?
Yeah.
Because one thing that I think maybe we miss in talking about nervous system regulation with breath is that sometimes the nervous system needs to be up-regulated, not just down-regulated.
Yeah.
And I think that this breath can do that. You can change the humming, the pitch, but you can also change the length of the exhales and the inhales if you wanted to. That's not typically how it's used, but when just thinking about shallow or quick breathing oftentimes activates us, which is an evolutionary response so that we could run away from the bear or the lion or whatever.
Or get up and be functional.
Exactly. And now that heart rate increases maybe if you're like, oh no, I'm late for a meeting and I've got to get going. But most of the time when we're talking about, I would think like when we're talking about pranayama, we're talking more about like nervous system regulation, down regulation, or just kind of like
I do have thoughts about that. Like I feel like a lot of pranayama deliberately stresses the system. So I'm thinking of like Kapalabhati, that skull shining breath. It's basically hyperventilating. And then if you were to do a series, rapid, forceful exhales, passive, quick inhales, and do that, you start to get lightheaded because you're blowing off so much carbon dioxide and you're stressing yourselves out. And it gives you that dizzy, skull shining feeling. I used to love that pranayama. And what we never did after it until I went to more advanced teacher trainings was then take a really deep breath, hold it in, and let those carbon dioxide levels build back up in the bloodstream and let your nervous system calm down again, build your tolerance to letting that carbon dioxide level get a little higher, because we're unconsciously often over-breathing. Over-breathing is breathing too fast, too quickly for this context, for the situation that you find yourself in. So you're not exercising, you're just going through your emails or having a conversation with a relative.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where the psychotherapeutic piece comes in. I have a lot of clients that are really highly anxious. That's the people that I work with the most. And they are unconsciously breath holding or shallow breathing. And they have a lot of insight cognitively. I know what's going on for me. I know I'm really anxious. I know my thoughts aren't helpful. I know I need to set boundaries. I know. But then they're like, but what do I do with it?
You should do more. And you should pick up that magazine that says 31 ways, 1,001 ways to organize your life better.
Exactly. Yes. Here's the 5 steps to happiness.
Yeah. Right. It only takes 5 steps to get happiness and 1,001 ways to organize your pantry.
Yeah. What's up with that? Well, I think I used to get stuck before I started doing more somatic work and introducing more therapeutic yoga into my psychotherapy practice. I would also get a little bit stuck with them of like, well, crap, I don't know what you should do.
Right.
Maybe we should think more about it.
How do we problem solve this intractable problem? Right.
Exactly. But what I've learned in my own like personal practice and then in working with clients is that oftentimes we need to think less and breathe more and slow down. And then that allows the logical part of your brain, working from a bottom up is kind of what we would call it. So allowing the emotional centers of the brain and the logical centers of the brain to come together.
Yeah.
So working in unison rather than like the emotion is really loud or they're intellectualizing everything and trying to think their way out of it. By using pranayama, whether it's bee breath or any other type of pranayama or doing some kind of meditation, the brain then can balance, literally can balance itself out. So then they can use the most wise part of themselves to like move forward.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was looking at a study that was comparing our stress levels when we exercise, when we do this bee buzzing breath, the Bhramari Pranayama, when we sleep, and the buzzing pranayama had a lower stress level than sleep. Even.
Oh, wow.
It was close. Like it was like a 10 for sleep and like a 9.27 for this pranayama.
Wow.
But this humming is just very relaxing. And I think it might be interesting to talk about humming in general. Do you come from a humming family? Do you hum?
I do hum. My daughter hums a lot and sings a lot. I don't know that I come from a humming family necessarily, but
like a singing family?
No.
Yeah, I didn't
Not
either.
super musical.
Yeah.
My husband comes from a musical family, and I feel like our daughter has gotten that. And so she's always kind of like singing and humming, but I do find myself most relaxed when I'm listening to music or singing to music. And then in becoming a parent, one thing that I realized, a lot of times we talk about like humming or shushing to calm the baby.
Yes.
And I think what the first step that's happening is that it's actually calming the parent. And then the baby and the kids, their nervous system is responsive to the parent's nervous system.
So attuned.
Yes. So there's that co-regulation of, if I'm calming myself first, it's like the airplane rule, taking care of yourself first.
Yes.
Then, my child can start to calm down too.
I love that. I love that. But that humming and the lullabies, and it was so interesting reading about the history of humming and research into humming, as even in the animal kingdom, birds that eat on the ground will have a sentinel bird that sits on the branch. And every 5 seconds or so, that bird will make a call. And then if that bird stops, then all the birds that are on the ground will immediately scatter. So it's the silence that is danger. And the house that we used to live in, there was this huge bush that stayed green all winter. And all the sparrows would come in. And I loved it. It always reminded me of like gossiping people. And they're just chittering. They're making all this noise, chittering. And my thought was like, they're super relaxed, right? And you go into the woods and it's the bird song and the sounds of nature and it's the crickets. And then when you go into a certain area and all of that stops.
Right.
That's when you know there's...
It's a little unnerving.
Yes, that's when there's danger. So lots of animals use what they call contact calls. They make these low-level sounds. You could compare them to humming, this almost constant chittering of sounds to communicate a sense of safety. And the theory is that as we evolved from primates that were physically grooming each other, like, let me take the bugs off of you, that then we went to vocal grooming, that then we would sing songs communally or we would hum together communally.
Yeah.
And then that was a way that people soothed babies, right? When lots of people it wasn't just you, one mom, one lone parent trying to soothe a baby in a dark room all by yourself, right? You had this community support and lots of people humming to help the baby stay relaxed.
Yeah.
I love this.
I do too. And I mean, think about how it feels to chant in community, like in a studio with other people.
Yeah.
Or even sound baths.
Yes. Kirtan and sound bath, the gong, the resonance. Resonance and vibration, that sound. It's in the beginning was the word, right? Is that in the Bible? They say that in the beginning was the word. And one of my teachers, Doug Keller, is fond of saying in the beginning was the sound, that om.
Yes.
In most classes, it's like, oh, like lots of time on that O and a little bit of time on that M. But as you were saying, it's that
Yes.
resonance in the chest. That's where it's at. You want to
Right.
maybe shorten that O for the Om and really go the O, like open, like it raises the palate and it has a good function for opening the throat. But then it's like you close the mouth.
Right.
And it's the, that long drawn out M sound is where the magic happens.
Yeah, and that auditory sound. So it's not even just the vibration or the resonance, but it's also the sound is so anchoring. That auditory component of it.
Yeah.
It's anchoring in terms of, if you're having a lot of racing thoughts or unhelpful thoughts, you can anchor yourself in the sound of your own voice. So a lot of times in yoga, we talk about the sound of your breath. If that's not anchoring enough, using that auditory tone, I'm taking myself away from these thoughts and I'm thinking about this sound. And I think that can be really powerful too, of just a distraction. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden
everything's solved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, it's that bridge.
A bridge.